Hi everybody, welcome to our lecture for Chapter 8 in Money in Schools, which is going to look at how we budget and how we structure student activities. This chapter is one that I think matters and I think is important. You need to know what the role of student activities are in schools. As future principals or people that are in leadership roles, you have to make budgeting decisions that directly impact activities. You have to understand where those activity funds come from, who controls them, what they mean, what they stand for. And this can be challenging for people that have not worked with activity funds before. I found in my time that working with student activities is probably the most important thing that I cover in this class, because it's something that impacts so much money. It's easy to steal from student activities, and because of that, we pass over it because it's a nominal fee compared to somebody's salary. But my goal is so that you don't pass over this stuff and you think about it. This is a big idea and something that I really want to stress. So it is the most important chapter that we're going to cover. I really feel that way. You don't have autonomy over decisions in your building outside of activity funds. Most of the time, principals control the activity funds. So if you are a principal, you work hand in hand with central administration on how much activity funds you need, what they look like, what they represent. And that's big and that's important because the principal ultimately will get to be the one that makes the decision on how much is being spent on activity funds, how much needs to be spent on activity funds, if any organization is getting too much. So I think that's important, and I think it's something that we really need to cover and we really need to stress. And it's why I think this is an important chapter that's going to really relate to the final project in the course and also the PowerPoint project. So activities are what people remember in schools. It's the lifeblood. It's what all of you remember right now. You think back to the activities that you were involved in, the things that you did, the places you went, if you went on a field trip. It's the first memory that you make in school, and you remember those people that you were involved in those activities with your entire lives. These cost money, but they give students good experiences that help them perform better in school. So if there are activities, the school gets prominence in the community, more people want to come to the school, more tax dollars, more money. That's the point of this idea. So student activities exist to give students positive experiences. And honestly, and I don't say this, but it's the truth, they exist to make students like school. And there's nothing at all wrong with that. If it's going to make a student like school, I think that's great. They can develop their individuality. They can find out what they like and what they don't like. They can be outreach for the general public and provide them entertainment. That's what sports does. But I would argue there are two activities that mean more than anything else, and that's football and that's band. And I'm not saying that to downplay any other activities. The activities that bring the district money and bring the district notoriety are the football program and the band program. And that's the truth. It's why anytime I'm teaching a district level finance course to people, I always stress that even if you want to cut arts, you can't cut the music program, because if you cut the music program, you could be directly impacting band, and that's going to cause you a lot of public relations nightmares with the school. So budgeting for activities really depends on the school district and how they do it, because some school districts have so many extracurricular programs and some only have a few. This idea and understanding how each one is funded is huge. It's a major challenge because so much is relied on fundraising. There's more fraud too, because people are more than likely to steal if they know that money's coming in and out. So having clear policies in place for activity funds, I can't stress that enough. That's a big idea in this chapter, and it's a big idea that we have to talk about. So let me give you our definition of activity funds. An activity fund is a legal entity created by statute in most states that says money has to be there for school activities. They are traditionally defined outside of the curriculum. Because they're outside of the curriculum, it is a whole new set of rules and a whole new set of responsibilities. Trust me, I have seen school districts that have a marching band class. That creates an issue and that creates a challenge in itself. If you do audition-based marching band and you have it open as a class and you won't let somebody in, that's going to cause a lawsuit in some form or another, or some policy change. Something is going to happen. So those activity funds are ones that support the school curriculum, but they're also ones that support the activity as well. So student activity funds consist of money that's involved in a student-owned organization. Students manage the organization, they manage the activity. These are things like booster clubs and religious organizations. Some schools don't permit these at all. And if they do, they say that they are given to the students and the student raises the activity funds, but it's done on school property, but it is not sponsored by the school. It is not part of the budget. So, district activity funds are funds that are managed by the district. These are things like larger organizations that can impact multiple buildings, things like after-school tutoring. The district will decide how to manage and balance their own money with them, but these are after-school programs, anything that's district-specific. If there's a drunk driving program that's district-sponsored, there's an agriculture club, but it's one that's done at every site. That's a district activity fund. So if it's a district-based one, the district determines how the money's spent and how it's allocated to each individual site. So there are controls on activity funds. They're monitored at the individual building level and at the district level. There have to be ways to make sure that people understand what they are and what they're used for. Control is good in activity funding because it's there for the well-being of every single person that's involved. I feel that building principals have to understand activity funds, and if they're going to screw one thing up, it's activity funds. So when you ask me, why does this matter? Why do we care about activity funds? It's the one thing that a principal's most likely to mess up. And can it be forgiven? Yes, but if we're talking thousands of dollars, you don't want the principal liable for that, or you don't want it to be something that's costing them their job. So the school superintendent and the school board gives you the line of authority. They determine who presides over what activity fund. Most of the time, the school board treasurer, which can either be an appointed person or an elected person. It depends on the district, and that's the same here as well. It really depends on the district. They're the ones that have control, and then they decide how it's done. It's then distributed to the school level, and the principal of the building is the person that's in charge of the activity fund. So here are a few general activity fund policies that you could set that might be things that could help you when you're thinking about managing your activity funds. So you could have professional accounting services initially set them up. You can make sure that all staff are actually trained on what they're supposed to be doing with it and how money comes in and how money comes up. The district treasurer should have standard forms and procedures that goes to every single building. Every building needs to know what's going on. The board has to approve the initial activity fund. That is a big idea. The board should also make sure there is a supervisor for the activity funds as well. All fundraising done in advance by central administration and the school board if it's necessary. Activity funds should always be spent on students and students exclusively. That's who the money's for. It's to benefit the students. Cash basis. Shouldn't be putting things on credit cards if they're an activity fund, because then we're dealing with interest and other ends of the spectrum that can be challenges. All activity funds should be audited, and they can be audited in-house, and I think that's something that's easy to do and something that all building principals can do. Never use them as a loan or a credit or a benefit to anybody else. They are done for the activity. While I'm sitting here telling you, and I don't lie about this, you should have, if you have leftover money at your building, it's not a bad idea to spend it. Activity funds, don't spend them unless you know the activity is going away. Save your money so that you can do bigger things. Bookkeeping errors happen misintentionally, but they also happen, with actual people stealing. So tighten cash controls and make sure that all receipt and disbursement procedures are clearly documented and your building secretary knows how to do this. Doing an audit every week by the secretary can also give you financial control as well. The bookkeeper should prepare checks and somebody else should sign them. The principal should sign all checks, or they should have somebody sign them in their place, their building secretary. But if the principal signs all checks, that means they know what's coming in and they know what's going out. Every check should have 2 signatures. That's big because then there's 2 people that are accountable. Bank statements should be reconciled regularly and making sure that they're done by somebody that is not the fund's supervisor. So I give you the 11 controls on cash. Once again, these are things that you can look at on your own. I'll give you a minute to read over them. I think they're all pretty simple to understand, but I'm going to give you a couple of things directly related to disbursement. So take a minute and look over those 6 ideas. and the next 5. Okay, so let's talk about cash disbursement real quick. There are 4 proper rules for cash disbursement. You need to make sure that the group sponsor signs any disbursement forms, and so does the activity fund supervisor, who's the school principal. I like the idea of a student signing them as well. It gives them accountability, and I also think that way the student knows what's going on, the group knows what's going on, and the supervisor knows what's going on. The sponsor signs it, the principal signs it, pre-numbered checks, multiple signatures, and you should also show who requested the purchase, when it was, the amount, and the check number. If you do all of this, you can't get in trouble, because then you have multiple people that are involved in where the money goes, how the money's spent, and then they can make sense of it. So if you can somehow manage to do all of this, this is in your best interest. Big main idea, be careful when spending money. Spend money for only what it is intended to do, and that's especially true when we're dealing with activities. You got to just spend it for what the purpose of it is. And try to use fund accounting so that you segregate money and you know what the money is used for, so that the first 2 rules can be efficiently met. There are things like non-activity funds that come in, but they're classified here. If you have to have a fee to take an AP course, a technology fee, these should be kept separate, and they shouldn't be used for activity funds. But some programming has programming fees. Hockey programs, I don't know how big that is here, but I know how it is. I know how it is up home. And our hockey programs are club sponsored, and the parents have to pay for their kids to do hockey, and they have to rent the ice time, and they have to collaborate together for it. So, what are fee funds? Well, fee funds are things like art fees, instructional supplies used in a music class. Maybe the district can't provide you with the instruments you need. Those are owned by the school district, and the school district gets to determine what they're used for. They can buy to help the building, and if there's a certain limit, the school district can set that limit. They collect the fees. The school will collect the fees, but they'll give them to the district, but they are the district type of fees, and they're receipt only. Sales tax is interesting in most schools, because most schools are tax exempt from every single purchase, almost every purchase. I'd say 99% of them. But different states have different laws as to whether sales tax should be charged. But schools normally can either do it at the district level, they can send in how much was paid for tax, or they can remit it at the building level. Bigger districts probably do it at the building level. Smaller districts are more likely to do it at the district level. Almost every single school district has petty cash. Petty cash is money that's sitting aside in case there's something like a game night, buying stamps, small food purchases, you want to buy the staff a pizza, people are staying after. Petty cash is there, and it exists. This is easy to steal from, but it's important that there's a maximum amount, it's an intended use, you can reimburse it with notes. Somebody should be the one that serves as the custodian for it, normally the building secretary. The custodian has to have signed receipts, so there's an audit trail. And at the end of the month, you put back in what was in petty cash initially. If you want to see what an activity fund report looks like and a perfect example of one, I strongly encourage you to look on page 262 of Money in Schools. It's very detailed, and it gives you a good idea of what a report should look like. And if you design one of your own, this is something that can help you. So that's it. The next chapter really looks at school facilities and infrastructure. This is another one of those chapters that's pretty long and pretty intense. And I'm also going to be building in a lot of district-related stuff with this as well. I've tried to pull from this chapter and spice it up a little bit more, because I've taught school facilities at the building level. When I do it, it's normally 6 or 7 slides. But when I talk about it at the district level, it's longer. I mean, I do a lot more at the district level. So we'll focus a little bit more on district level when we're doing this chapter. That's it. Hope you enjoyed the lecture. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.